But then we have this first conversation to have on the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum and Imo State Governor, Senator Hope Uzodimma, who presented his latest book on the APC's leadership of Nigeria over the past 10 years. Let's find out what all of that means with Professor Bennett Chima Nwaguma, who is here with us in the studio. He reviewed the book at the launch. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
It is the natural response anyone is going to first of all give to you is, look, as far as we're concerned, the book will be nothing but praising him because, of course, he is the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum. He is a governor of a state, and he is a very solid member of the party. So it is only natural for him to talk more from the pro side and not from the con side. Is that what people are likely to see?
Well, that's not what they will see, because I'm sure the author knew that the real value in this book will lie in having a balanced account. And so it was surprising to note that he did, in his best effort, to write a balanced book on their achievements, the challenges they've faced, where they've not met their promises as a governing political party. And if you do take a look at the book, you'll find a chapter that is dedicated to common criticisms of the APC government in the last 10 years.
That's courageous. But from your own perspective, I mean, as the reviewer, you're an academic. And yes. What was your first impression when you knew you had to review the book?
Well, the first impression was, well, curiosity, but the first impression was when you tell your story, you tell it in the best form possible.
Of course, throw the light on yourself.
That's correct. That's very correct. And like the author said, and the president said at the presentation, public presentation of the book, they said, if you don't tell your story, no one will tell it. So it's important that you tell your story. And as you know, when you present a document of this nature, people are going to have that view that he's told his story. The critics usually are extreme in their criticisms. And the man telling his story is also, you know, kind, maybe exaggerate with telling his story. The truth, like they say, is always somewhere in the middle. Yes.
So what were your findings in reviewing the book?
Well, a very thoroughly written book, very rich in the political history of this country. And, you know, the most remarkable thing about the political content of this book, the historical content, is the author established a very interesting link between the political history of Nigeria in terms of party formation, manifesto, and doctrines, and contemporary Nigerian politics, and how progressivism seems to be the central link in all these parties.
Okay, well, I really want to hear more. How many pages are we talking about here?
373 pages,
gosh.
You know, split into 10 chapters.
First question in my head is, who has the patience to read 300 books these days? You know, but you know, I mean, it's a historical document.
A reference document.
A reference document.
That's
Thank
correct,
you very much.
Yes.
So, what were your observations as you reviewed the book? Can you give us a snippet of some of the things that you had to talk about when you reviewed the book?
Well, at the book review, I made a distinction between the three different segments of the book. In the first 3 chapters, he laid the background to what to expect. So he talked about the history of, you know, party politics in Nigeria, and then the history of progressive governance of politics across the world, and then highlighted the manifesto with which the APC campaigned in 2015, and that enabled them to emerge victorious. And then in the central part of the book that I refer to the kernel of the book, the author highlighted their main achievements in the different sectors and gave a sector-by-sector account through that chapter onto chapter 5. Again, he tried to make the link between this program's policies, legislations, and the promises as contained in the manifesto. So these were not off-the-cuff projects, but this was them trying to deliver on the manifesto, on the campaign promises. And then that went on to chapters 7 and 9. In chapter 8, he tries to then highlight the criticisms that they have faced and how they are responding to them. And in the final section of the book, he tries to predict what the future holds for Nigeria under the APC governance.
Please permit me to go to the criticisms. It's because many people, as you said, it's natural for you to want to throw light on yourself. But no matter how well lit the room is, so long as there is any infrastructure in the room, there will be some dark patches here and there.
Naturally.
So tell us about some of those criticisms in the book and how he addressed them.
Well, the criticisms bother on, people have criticized the economic reforms and the impact it's having on the people. They've criticized even what they refer to as internal democracy within the party. The pace of some of the reforms in the public sector and the public service, progress in the fight against corruption, some, describing it as rather slow, and then criticisms of the success recorded in the fight against insecurity, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, are they valid according to the book? Are they valid criticisms? How did he address them?
Well, he received them as valid, genuine criticisms, yes. And they did acknowledge that, yes, the progress, so much progress has been made. The progress hasn't been as fast as they had hoped for, but it is work in progress, and that forms part of what he says that the APC is going to do going forward.
Do you think that the title of the book was able to address, well, sufficiently or significantly capture the essence of the book, a decade of progressive, impactful governance in Nigeria?
Oh yes, he stayed on the subject. Okay. Built the background, like I said, in chapters 1, 2, and 3. In chapters 4, 5, the kernel of the work, the impact they've had. And then 7 and 8 dedicated to the impact in diplomacy and then in foreign relations. And then in the next chapter, impact on inclusiveness, what the party has done to address.
One of the things that I usually, find interesting is whether or not they expected or anticipated some of the challenges that they had to encounter. You said that they, according to the book, things are not happening as quickly as they expected that they would happen. Now, that's a normal thing in governance, isn't it?
Oh, true.
Okay, so how does that demonstrate a preparedness or a lack of it for governance, according to the book, from what you can see?
Well, there was preparedness, I would say, because they campaigned. I mean, I'm referring to the book now. The APC claimed their campaign was based on the fact that it had identified the failings and the weaknesses of the governing PDP, and then tailored their manifesto campaign promises to address those weaknesses. So they were prepared. Okay. But again, when you open the door, sometimes you're surprised at what you see. And then projections usually, differ from, expectations oftentimes differ from observations.
Well, I know my colleague Mwankwa will want to jump in on this conversation at some point, but that comparison between the PDP and the APC, was it in any way reflected in the book?
Oh, yes, there's a chapter dedicated to that, where the author compares the last 10 years of the PDP administration and then the 10 years of the APC administration. We drew that comparison in a chapter, dedicated a chapter to it.
Okay. And well, as I said, it's expected that the APC will say they performed better than the PDP, but the circumstances of Nigerians may not be saying exactly the fact that, okay, things have improved. How does the book address that?
Well, it's in the details.
Okay.
It does address it sufficiently. And that's where the rigor comes in. The rigor that went into the research, that went into preparing. There's not headline stuff, but real rigor with statistics, with figures, that can be cross-checked.
One of the things that I usually struggle with is how initiatives of governments, political parties, address the concerns, particularly of young people. It's one thing to have documented manifestos. It's another thing for the people to trust that manifesto of the party. From the accounts of the book, do you see that rigor go into marketing or communicating the manifestos, the intentions, the plans and programs of the party to the people, particularly young people?
Well, I would say so, because some of the programs, you know, especially the welfare programs, the social welfare programs, actually address the needs of the young people, meaning that they are quite responsive. And if you know, the young people seem to be the most vocal of the current generation, using the social media to make their voices heard. And I do not think any government that means well will stay silent or non-responsive to those comments.
Okay. Just before I bring in Markwe, what are some, can you please highlight some of those impactful initiatives of the APC over the past 10 years as contained in the book?
Well, in the area of infrastructure, the book highlights what they've done for infrastructure, the roads, the rail lines, and the airports, the seaports, and housing infrastructure. The book also highlighted the policies, the reform policies, and the expectations thereof. Also highlighted a number of the programs they've done for agriculture to address the issue of food security, what they've done for education, made copious description of what the NEL Fund, the National Education Loan Fund, is intended to give equal opportunities to people from less privileged background to attend and obtain university education, stuff like that, you know, and even what they did for primary and tertiary health care, what they've done to improve access to university education, creating new universities, and therefore widening access opportunities for people. Quite detailed stuff.
At the risk of asking you to read out the entire book, you know, I wish you could list the states where some of these programs, you know, were executed for people.
Yes, I mean, for instance, I took particular interest in the agricultural sector. We made reference, because starting from the Anchor Boroughs program that was introduced under the Buhari administration, through the efforts they made to provide fertilizers, and then the tractor assembly facility in, I think it was in Zamfara State. So those details are here, which don't make the headlines every day.
Okay. Markwe?